you guys don't know me, I'm Joshua Johanan. I live locally here. I work for Beacon Health System, which if you don't know, it's Memorial and Elkhart, and they came together. It's the parent company. And we mainly do .NET and some proprietary stuff. But I've also done, through freelance or other stuff, some Node.js, Python stuff, iOS, so different stuff. So we're going to talk Node.js here. And we're not actually going to install Express. We're actually going to build our own little package that works a lot like Express. So we're just going to see how Node kind of works with HTTP, and then also how you can actually then build a package and then install it and use it. So a lot like John was talking about with Atom, we can take this and we're going to modularize it and make it so that you can build components and then build your own little Node packages. So I actually don't have slides. I'm actually going to attempt, we're not going to live code it. I do have I have a GitHub repo, and we're going to jump between branches with the code already coded. So,
like a cooking show.
Yeah, I'll pop it in and bring it out. So this is Visual Studio. I will confess that when I do Node stuff, I usually don't use Visual Studio. I usually use a Mac and a JetBrains IDE, PyCharm with a Node.js extension installed. But I have used this about the last month or two. Microsoft has an open source plugin that you can use for Node.js. So you can kind of see over here. There you go. Snuff says. So you can see it kind of knows about NPM and other stuff actually inside of Visual Studio. So this is pretty much a very basic package. There's nothing really here. And if we look at the server, this is just your basic way that if you're using Node.js, how you can actually serve HTTP. So HTTP is built into Node.js. It's a core module. You create a server, you tell it to listen on a port, and then because everything in Node.js is evented, then you have to listen for a request event. And then you can put a callback, and then you're going to get a request. Yeah.
Sorry, can you up the zoom a little bit?
Okay.
Maybe like 150 or something.
Better?
Getting closer to my font size.
I like it small. That way they don't know
Might
I'm
be.
actually coding. So, is that good?
Looks better.
All right, so this is your most basic way that you can actually serve HTTP in Node. So your request and response, your request is, they're both streams, which makes sense since it's actually a socket connection. But this HTTP in Node, it doesn't do much for you. It pretty much just responds to HTTP requests, and it gives you these objects, and then that's it. You have no routing. You can't serve static files. It gives you all the basic tools that you can do. So if we actually look at this, we can crack this open. It'll actually launch Node. And launch a browser, which went over here. So because there's only one function, everything you do is just going to respond with hey. It doesn't matter what you type. There's no routing. So that's kind of our first kind of look at how Node does HTTP. And actually with this, you can actually come in here. You can set a breakpoint. There we go. And if we reload, let's restart this. It'll actually break for us. And if you use Visual Studio, you should be used to this. You got your locals in here. So you got your request. You can look at it. We can see it's a GET request. URL's just at the root. Same thing with the response. You can kind of look through it. So you can do full debugging in here, but we'll go ahead and stop. And then I'm going to jump to our next branch. So this is the very basic serving HTTP. I just jumped a branch in here. So this should actually be, this is the actual little Express clone that we're making. It's really quick. It makes some really, really bad assumptions, which we'll see, but it's just hacked together, and it gives you kind of a similar idea to how Express works. So now we're creating a new instance of our simple app, which is right down here. And then just like Express, we're going to set middleware. So we say app use, and then that creates middleware. Undefined, that means it's going to run on every route. We're not saying only run on this route here. And then we just give it a function. So here we have a static file. We pass it a directory. You can see over here there's a static file directory. So it'll serve files out of this. And then if this middleware doesn't hit, then it'll run this one, which it'll just say, hey, from simple app. So a lot like our other one. And then we just set it up and we tell it to run this handle. And this is actually the code that it does. It's very simple. Middleware stack is just an array. Use, we're just pushing into that array. We got a route match, so we can see there if it's undefined, it returns true, or if it equals a URL. Again, that's a bad assumption because it doesn't handle any parameters whatsoever that you pass in. But if it does match that, it'll return. And then here is the handle. So it just comes in, and the core of it's just this next. So it just takes the next item off the middleware, and it checks to see how many parameters it takes, which again, this is very Express-like. If you have 3, it'll run through and run that, which is request, response, or is it response, request, next. If you have 4, then that means an error. So you can handle errors as well. So it just checks to see, is there an error? And what function will it take? And we return it. Then our static file, just simple. Come in here, see if the file exists based on the URL. Another bad assumption, we're going to return everything as text, HTML as the content type. And so it'll serve a static file. Again, like I said, really quick. We're only like, 50 lines of code to do an Express clone. So if we run this, we should be able to find those static files. So remember, there's no routing, so it doesn't have a concept of a default document. Even though we have an index.html, this does not know when you're at the root, to serve index.html, but we can go ahead and put index. So there's a static file that was served. Then we have another one about. You can jump between them. And then you can type whatever you want in here. And it will serve it. You can put test in here. And it'll serve hey from simple app. Again, that's because that second function in our middleware, it just responds to everything. It just says hey from simple app. So we now have a little Express clone that's working, but this is not, we can't reuse this. If you're going to use this again, you don't want to copy paste this and throw it around. So the final step that we're going to do is we're actually going to put this into our own module, or a package. The Node plugin, it's still beta, so you still get some errors sometimes in Visual Studio, but I think it should work. So here you can see we're actually requiring simple app. So we actually pulled it out and created our own module package. So we can see it here, it knows about it, it sees that it's installed. We can look at package.json, and then right here. So I put it out on GitHub. That pretty much the core of that package that we're using there, you can just put that on a GitHub. So when you run it here, you say simple app, git, GitHub, and this doesn't have to be GitHub. This can be any Git repository and pull it out. So if you have a private Git repository, you can create your own packages and then just install them through npm here. It'll use Git, pull it down, create a folder called simple app, because that's what I called it, and throw it in there. So we can see here, we pop that in there, and then so now we can require it right here, and we'll crack open that actual, the simple app folder. Here, there's a couple more. We can see that you can set up a whole middleware stack. Again, if you've done any Express, that looks a lot like what you do in Express. You use your uses, put in all your middleware, and it should run. So we can do a quick test here. It should work very similarly. We had a 404, so if it gets all the way to the end without any of them firing, it's going to give you a not found. We put that in the middleware. We're still serving static files. We have some routing. We have test, which should return something. We have error, which should return, should actually just call an error. So this is an error. Then the error handler actually goes in and it returns a, reload it. We can see we set it to a 500. It gets returned there. So we can see that in the last one. Status code 500, response right, there was an error. So we actually caught that error and it came out. A console actually opens as well. It was over here. So we can see it's logging as well because we said log every request URL. So our middleware is working correctly. It's running through that stack exactly how we expect it to. So we're going to go ahead and look in Node modules. And so there's our folder, simple app, so we called it. And then we can see here the package JSON. So this is kind of key when you're building a package in Node. This defines everything that's happening. You can see the dependencies. Well, they're development dependencies. Istanbul is a coverage package. Mocha is a test runner. Super test helps with testing. So you can put all those in there. If you had other dependencies, throw them in there. The scripts is really useful in that the test one, that's a special one. You can actually just run npm test, and it will run that code right there, that command line. And in coverage, coverage isn't special, so you'd have to run npm run coverage, and that'll run your coverage. There's also like main, or if you had some build steps that you needed to do for your package, you could put those in there. And so you can define exactly how to build it, how to test it. Because with Node.js, there's no special, there's not one test runner. I mean, there's dozens that you can choose. So you can say, hey, we use Mocha, and when you test it, here's the test. The other key thing is main, and that points to index.js. And that's really how, when you require simple app, or when you require this package, it knows where to start, how to enter your package, and get all of the things that you've exported. Although I think by default, if there's an index, it'll get used. I can't, don't quote me on that though. So here's the index, if I can actually open it. So we broke out static, powered. That actually just adds a little powered by header in there. So we have our exports there. We have simple app because it'll get hoisted because it's a function. So we can export it right there. And then the other two will just be properties off of that. And then this is actually just the same code that we had. So I just moved it over there. All right. So looking at this, we can see this is exactly what we had, but we took it, we modularized it, and we threw it into a package. And you can take this, you have private Git repos, if you don't want to put on GitHub to make it public, or if you have private GitHub repos, you can throw it there, and then your organization or whatever can just use those packages and pull them in. The final thing we'll look at here is, we'll jump over. So we jumped into the root of this, and then when you install a package, it's essentially just another little Node project. When you have a package, it's just a Node project inside of a Node project inside of a Node project. It's pretty much just project all the way down. It's turtles all the way down. You just keep going. So in here, install. If you want to install your dev dependencies, which I already have, you can do npm install. But this is what I was talking about before. Test is a special command. You can run npm test, and then that's running that code. So I built a couple tests. They're all passing. It goes through. You want to run coverage. Like I said, that wasn't a special one. So you just run npm run, and then whatever you name that little property in that object, you can then put that in there, and it'll get out of that scripts and then run that command for you. So you have coverage, you can run coverage. So that runs it now under Istanbul, and we can see there we have a 100% coverage. So you can put this in your README. Hey, run your test as npm test. Coverage is here. You need build steps. Run npm run build. So yeah, that's pretty much how you create packages, and then you can use them in Node, and create modular applications. So that's it. Any questions? All right.
So this is basically what Express actually is under the covers. It's actually really simple. I guess I've always assumed that it wrapped a lot more around the
Yeah, this is heavily inspired by
stock
Express.
HTTP server.
Yeah, I mean their middleware stack is just an array as well, and it just throws in.
It always seemed like it was more clever than that. I mean, it's really all dependent then on the logic in the middleware to do all of it.
Yeah, it makes better assumptions than this. Like I said, you definitely don't want to use this because your routing is going to be all messed up. If you have any type of parameters, your routes won't match. The static files doesn't do any type of MIME types. So, but yeah, that's a 50-line Express and middleware. Yes.
So what are your feelings on like Happy and Koa compared to Express?
I haven't really used those. I mainly use Express. I mean, I've used it and liked it, so didn't really jump too far away from it. But yeah, and pretty straightforward, just like there. You just use your middleware. So sorry, I didn't have a better answer than that. Any other questions?